Have you ever met someone who never seems to attach? They date, but never fall in love. They make friends, but never really need them. They leave cities, jobs, even families, without looking back. And maybe, if you're honest, maybe that someone is you. On the surface, they look strong, independent, unbothered. They don't get clingy. They don't beg people to stay. When relationships end, they shrug and say, "It is what it is." While others are drowning in heartbreak, they seem to walk away dry. But here's the question. Is it strength or is it protection? Psychology calls this pattern avoidant attachment, a concept that comes from John Bowlby's attachment theory. In simple terms, our earliest relationships teach us what to expect from connection. If, as children, we learned that closeness led to disappointment, rejection, or emotional neglect, the mind does something brilliant and tragic. It adapts. A child who doesn't receive consistent warmth might unconsciously decide, "It's safer not to need anyone." And that belief doesn't disappear with age. It matures. It puts on a suit. It becomes independence. It becomes ambition. It becomes the person who says, "I just don't get attached." But deep down, something else is happening. Imagine this. You're in a relationship with someone who is kind, attentive, emotionally available. Instead of feeling comfort, you feel uncomfortable. When they say, "I miss you," your chest tightens. When they ask about your feelings, your mind goes blank. Why? Because attachment requires vulnerability. And vulnerability feels dangerous. To someone who's nervous, system learned that closeness equals pain. The paradox is powerful. They crave connection, yet distance feels safer. They want intimacy, yet independence feels more secure. They long to be understood, yet hide their true emotions. From the outside, it looks like they don't care. Inside, it feels like self-defense. Psychologists often describe this as a subconscious strategy. Consciously, they may believe, "I just like my space." But subconsciously, their body remembers something older, something wordless, a time when depending on someone didn't feel safe, and so they master detachment. They become the person who leaves before being left, who minimizes feelings before they grow too big, who convinces themselves they never needed the relationship anyway. It's not that they don't feel, it's that feeling deeply feels overwhelming. Think about it. Have you ever downplayed something important just to avoid the risk of losing it? Have you ever told yourself, "I don't care," when you actually cared too much? Detachment can be a shield, a beautifully polished, socially admired shield. In a culture that praises independence, especially in Western societies like the US, not needing anyone can look like emotional maturity. But there's a subtle difference between healthy independence and emotional avoidance. Healthy independence says, "I choose you, but I know I'll survive without you." Avoidance says, "I don't need you, so I won't risk wanting you." One is freedom. The other is fear disguised as freedom. People who never feel attachment often learned early that relying on others leads to disappointment. So they rely on themselves entirely, completely, excessively. They become hypercompetent, self-sufficient, calm in crisis. They rarely ask for help, and because they don't lean on others, others assume they don't need support. But here's the silent truth. Everyone needs connection. It's biological. It's wired into our nervous system. We are social beings. The absence of attachment isn't the absence of desire. It's the suppression of it. And suppression is exhausting. The real tragedy isn't that they don't attach. It's that they learned attachment wasn't safe. And if you recognize yourself in this pattern, the most important question isn't, "Why am I like this?" It's softer than that. It's, "What did I have to protect myself from?" Because detachment is rarely a personality trait. More often, it's a survival strategy. And survival strategies, while brilliant in childhood, can quietly limit intimacy in adulthood. The real work isn't forcing yourself to attach. It's slowly teaching your nervous system that closeness doesn't have to equal danger. But that journey begins with awareness. And awareness is uncomfortable. Which brings us to the deeper layer of this psychology. Let's go deeper. People who never feel attachment often describe themselves as logical. They prefer facts over feelings. They handle conflict by withdrawing. When emotions rise, they shut down. But this isn't because they lack emotion. It's because emotions once felt overwhelming. In psychology, this can also be connected to emotional suppression and avoidant coping styles. When a child's emotional needs are dismissed, stop crying. You're too sensitive. Handle it yourself. They internalize a message. Feelings are inconvenient. Needs are weakness. dependence is dangerous. Over time, the mind builds armor, and armor works. Until it doesn't. Because here's the paradox. The same wall that keeps pain out also keeps love out. Have you ever noticed how some people can walk away from years-long relationships and appear unaffected? No dramatic breakdowns, no late-night messages, just silence. But silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it means avoidance. Sometimes it means unprocessed grief that shows up later, in subtle ways, in difficulty trusting, in a pattern of short-lived relationships, in a vague feeling of emptiness that success can't fix. Externally, they perform stability. Internally, they may feel disconnected, not just from others, but from themselves. And that's the hidden cost. Because attachment isn't just about romance. It's about friendship, family, community, belonging. It's about allowing yourself to matter to someone and allowing them to matter to you. To never attach is to never fully risk loss, but it's also to never fully experience depth. And here's the deeper question. Is avoiding heartbreak worth avoiding intimacy? For someone who grew up equating love with unpredictability, the answer might subconsciously be yes. They might choose casual over committed, distance over closeness, independence over interdependence. And again, this isn't weakness. It's adaptation. But adaptation isn't destiny. Neuroscience tells us the brain is plastic. Patterns can change. Attachment styles can shift. Through therapy, self-awareness, and safe relationships, the nervous system can slowly learn that closeness doesn't automatically mean pain. It requires small risks. Letting someone see you upset, admitting you miss them, saying, "I need you," even if your voice shakes. For someone who never attaches, these acts feel enormous, terrifying even. Not because they're dramatic, but because they challenge a lifelong belief. I'm better off alone. And maybe they were, once. But adulthood offers a different possibility. What if connection isn't a trap? What if dependence in healthy doses isn't weakness, but humanity? What if the strongest people aren't the ones who never need anyone, but the ones brave enough to admit they do? Here's the quiet truth. Detachment protects you from pain, yes, but it also protects you from joy. And joy requires risk. To love is to risk loss. To attach is to risk heartbreak. To open is to risk rejection. But to avoid all of that is to risk never being fully known. So if you see yourself in this pattern, don't judge it. Don't shame it. Thank it. It kept you safe. And then gently ask yourself, is this armor still serving me? Or is it isolating me? Because the goal isn't to become dependent. It's to become secure. Secure enough to stay. Secure enough to care. Secure enough to feel. People who never feel attachment aren't cold. They're cautious. They aren't heartless. They're protective. And protection, while necessary once, doesn't have to define your future. The deepest strength isn't in never attaching. It's in choosing attachment, knowing the risks, and opening your heart anyway. That is courage. And maybe, just maybe, that's where real freedom begins.